Baltimore Ravens rookies report to training camp today. We talk about rookie expectations, training camp battles that will involve rookies, and so much more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here on this Saturday. It is a bonus episode of the show. I decided to end up doing one, and thank you for making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day as well. We're free and available for you always, all podcasting platforms. So YouTube, if you're watching here, you can like and subscribe to the channel in audio form. If you're listening over here as well, you can follow along and subscribe 5 days a week, plus these bonus episodes, live shows. We have a lot of content here for you on Locked On Ravens. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I was on the fence about doing a bonus episode. I wasn't sure how everything was going to work out, but you know what? Rookies report today. Officially, I mean, the offseason is still going on, but we finally have stuff to talk about. And we haven't really done a ton of rookie expectations, rookie potential training camp battles. So I figured, you know what? I think it's a good idea to hop on here and do a bonus episode. Nothing crazy, not going to be a super long show or anything today, but I do want to be able to talk about guys like Nate Wiggins and Roger Rosengard in a bit more detail, talk about expectations for the class in general. We've done a lot of that. We did a lot of it right after the draft happened, a couple weeks after we had those conversations. But now that we are in July, kind of how those conversations have evolved. So again, we'll mention some of the Ravens' earlier draft picks, get into some of their later round guys as well. Lisa Isaac, Tez Walker, TJ Tampa, Rasheen Ali, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll also talk about some undrafted guys that could potentially make an impact and just all rookie stuff here. Again, we've done a lot of, Lamar Jackson crazy headlines and, Rashad Bateman workout video headlines and Cam Newton and Marshall Larry. We've done a lot of that. I'm excited to just get back to football, right? Get back to football talk. We will, of course, talk about those things when they are relevant. But right now what's relevant is the Ravens rookies report to camp today. And there might be a bonus episode tomorrow, depending on if there are any updates, if the rookies take the field. I'm not sure the actual schedule, if the rookies will be on the field today, or if that's more of a tomorrow/Monday thing. But if there are updates from camp, I probably plan on doing another bonus episode for Sunday. But if not, just as a precursor, we'll catch you right back here on Monday. But we have a whole episode to get to on Saturday right here. So let's talk about it. Rookies reporting. And I guess first we can talk about the class in general. As I talked about on yesterday's show, this rookie class to me, I think, has to contribute a ton this year. Obviously, you don't want to rely on them to win a Super Bowl. That is not a success for any contending team. But you have to rely on them to be pieces on a contending team. And that doesn't mean that every single player they drafted has to step up and be a starter or step up and have this amazing year. But whether it's as depth pieces, as quality starters, or just as guys that can fill in on occasion, the Ravens will have to have that from this rookie class. And I think they picked guys who they knew were NFL ready for the most part, obviously development being intact and them being able to work these guys along and enhance and develop their skill sets. But guys you could plug and play year one, like a Wiggins, like a Rosengard, Tez Walker being able to have a role early on, Rasheen Ali being the third back for them as Keaton Mitchell recovers, et cetera, et cetera. They drafted those guys. Plus, and I made this point on yesterday's show too, and it was kind of, I've been saying this for a while, but I just kind of formulated how to actually get it across here. The Ravens will essentially have two rookie classes this season minus Zay Flowers, right? Zay was the entire rookie class last season. A lot of guys in that class didn't play a ton last year. Trenton Simpson didn't play a ton last season. Tavius Robinson certainly played more than I thought he would, but he's going to have a much bigger role this year. Andrew Voorhees didn't play last year. He had the injury. He didn't play. So the Ravens rookie class last year was more of a developmental class outside of Zay. Zay was NFL ready. They played him as such, and he rewarded the team. But now you're getting this other influx of young talent to where your second-year guys, and even look, if you want to consider David Ojabo a third-year rookie, I honestly wouldn't blame you because of how little he's played, unfortunately, due to the injuries. And knock on wood, he can stay healthy, obviously. But the Ravens are getting this influx of quote-unquote rookie talent with their 2024 class, a lot of their 2023 class, and even some of their 2022 class who hasn't played a ton. But obviously focusing on the actual rookies, I think that, first of all, if we go back to the actual draft and how they drafted guys at positions of need, but they did take the best player available route. So I know that corner was not the number one need on everybody's list, right? It was offensive line. We went through that whole draft process. We talked ad nauseum, at length, about offensive line. Now, they took Rosengard in the second round, but you're not just going to take an offensive lineman to take an offensive lineman. Tyler Guyton was the last offensive lineman I would have taken if I were the Ravens. He got taken before they picked by Dallas. So the Ravens did a corner best player available, and they took Nate Wiggins. Then he took Roger Rosengard in the second. They had a couple of options. They liked Rosengard the best, and they took him. Adisa Isaac was definitely a best player available pick. I know a lot of people maybe wanted to see the double dip on offensive linemen. I know they were interested in some guards, but that guard pool went off the board quickly in the third round before Baltimore could get to him. So they went Adisa Isaac. In the fourth round, they got guys like Tez Walker, TJ Tampa, and then I mentioned guys like Ali. I mean, we all offseason, it was, what are the four biggest needs on this team? Corner, edge, offensive line, and wide receiver. No particular order there. They addressed all those. They did that. And so to me, now it's about, can they fill in on their respective positions and fill in those respective holes? I think that they can, but we know how this team is built. We know how they have to get contributions. Lamar's on that big contract. With any team that has a quarterback on a deal like that, plus all the other big contracts Baltimore has, it's really just an avenue of what's going on here. Because the Ravens have so much potential in these guys, and there's so much room for these guys to contribute early on in their careers. But there's also not going to be as much margin for error with these guys because of the fact that these guys are contending, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. If the Ravens were in a rebuild, if the Ravens were a team that didn't have a direction or were trying to figure things out, at the end of the day, there's more room for mistakes, more room for growth. If a guy makes a mistake, a young player, that's a developmental thing. Oh, it's okay. It's all right. Learn and grow from that. But when you talk about where this Ravens team is particularly, what the expectations are for them, and this goes for all contending teams, a young guy makes a mistake, and the conversation on him automatically becomes, yeah, the guy has to develop a little bit, but how long is the runway for this guy before you got to bring in a vet or reduce playing time or whatnot? But the thing is, the Ravens trust their young guy. I mean, the whole message this offseason has been that they trust their young guys. I mean, it has been put out on a silver platter for everybody to consume. They trust their young guys. The way they approached the offseason with really signing Derrick Henry as a veteran and really not much else, let a lot of veteran guys go. They brought back who they felt they needed to bring back, which is great. I thought bringing Kyle Van Noy back was a huge win. Obviously, Matabike signing that extension was massive as well. And there are a couple other guys that they should have re-signed, like Nelson Aguilar and more. But the way that this rookie class in particular is going to be relied upon this season is going to be, I'm going to use the word interesting here. I know I use that a lot, but it's kind of unprecedented for a contender because obviously every team relies on their rookie class, regardless of if you're contending or not in some way, shape, or form. But this is essentially young guys or bust for the Ravens this season, not I guess outside of Lamar, where this team goes as Lamar goes. And I think you always have a shot if you have Lamar. But it's really important to get those pieces around him. And I think Baltimore understood that in drafting this class, and even I think they were thinking it last year too when they drafted their 2023 class, to have that influx of talent is how they're going to have to win Super Bowls, build their rosters, is guys on rookie contracts and guys on veteran minimums. And we saw the veteran minimum approach last season. Now we're seeing the young guy approach this season. and we're going to see how it works out for him here in 2024. Coming up, though, we'll be talking a bit about some specific expectations, talking about the players next. So Nate Wiggins, Roger Rosengard, et cetera, et cetera. Stay tuned, plenty to talk about here on the show. First, the show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, driving, patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style. eBay Motors has it covered. With over 122 million parts, so your number one ride or die will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. So the parts you need are the prices you want a season to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. We're back for our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you on this bonus Saturday edition episode. Again, really appreciate everybody for being here. Hopefully, a good weekend is in store for everybody. And for the Ravens, rookies report today. So exciting stuff as we are, again, moving away from the, all right, what are we talking about today? What happened today? Part of the offseason and into, oh, hey, look, there are actually football players here and doing stuff. We can talk about that. That's really exciting. So thank you for making Locked On Ravens a part of your day always and your first listen each and every day. Be sure to make your second listen Locked On NFL. I host that show on Mondays. So we go over all the latest NFL news. Obviously, Ravens, we do talk about them when they have relevant news, but all across the league. So be sure to check out that here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, let's talk about Nate Wiggins and the expectations for him this season. We talked about this a lot on yesterday. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but we talked about it on yesterday's show. To me, I think that Nate Wiggins, there's been a lot of conversation about him being like a gadget player, like a defensive gadget player, a specific package player with his speed. He's more talented than that. He has speed. He has electric speed. I mean, in my opinion, he's a guy that you can match up all across the board, but I do have concerns about the frame and the slenderness. Now, I think those go away after a full offseason program. I think him getting in the weight room, having that regimen, that's great, but he's not going to be on that until after the year. So I think there's still a little concern with that for me. But what alleviates that a little is the fact, and I definitely said this yesterday, I made the point, he is not Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters was known for taking plays off, for not wanting to get involved in tackling, for not being the most high-effort player at all times. Nate Wiggins is not that. Nate Wiggins plays with a chip on his shoulder. He is a hard-nosed player. He's someone that has a bunch of competitiveness to him. And not that Peters wasn't competitive, but it just seemed like he really picked and kind of chose what he wanted to do when it came to getting physical because of his more slender frame. For Wiggins, he gets himself involved in the run game. He makes hits when he can. He plays with that passion and that energy, and I think that's really important in a big distinction based off of what the Ravens need from him, because the Ravens love their physical corners. They're bigger bodied. I mean, you look at the guys in their secondary: Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams. Those guys are bigger bodied players. You know, Marlon and Kyle more so than Brandon and Marcus, but still, they don't really have a player like Nate in their secondary who is in like their top four. But I do think Wiggins can be effective. We know the NFL is moving into a speed dynamic, speed direction on offense. We saw the Chiefs get Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy. Wiggins can match up with those guys. He has the recovery speed, sub 4.3. He has foot speed. I mean, he's someone that does a lot well, and I expect him to play a role. But he's going to be the number 3 corner outside to open the season. The good thing with the Ravens, though, is they like to play those 3-corner rotations on the outside, plus have their slot guy as well. So I think there is a path of playing time for Nate Wiggins, I think, to a lot of it, honestly, this year. And him being depth is also a really important part of this conversation, because we know how across the league cornerback injuries happen at a very frequent rate. So got to hope that doesn't happen for Baltimore. Knock on wood again. It does not. But we'll see. But I expect Wiggins to play even without any injuries in the secondary. Now, Roger Rosengard, look, I expect to play a lot. I expect him to win that starting right tackle job. He is involved in that competition with Daniel Failele, Patrick McCary, maybe Josh Jones is in there as well. So there's a lot of what happens. I don't know where the development is going to be based off what the Ravens need. I have confidence. I do. The foot speed is there. The athleticism is there. But I do think early on, at least, he will struggle with some power because it's the frame a little bit where he is not your big, like, hulking, like, regular, I guess, offensive lineman where people assume, like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy is like 6'8", 330. Like, that's not who Roger Rosengard is. I mean, he can overcome that. I mean, he's 6'5", 310, which for a tackle, I think a lot of people would say, oh, that's a little small. And look, we're saying 6'5" like it's small. It's not. But for me, can it translate over to the NFL game? That's what I'm looking for. I expect him to win. I think he's the most talented player in that group. I expect him to win that job. I don't think Daniel Falele is ready yet, despite him showing some flashes. Patrick McCary is good in that super sub role. And then, I think Josh Jones might be more in play for one of the starting guard spots, namely at right guard. So we're going to see, but Roger Rosengard is going to have to play a massive role this season. And I'm excited to see him in training camp. I mean, obviously when the pads come on, that's really when you get to identify what's going on with the offensive lineman. You can't really tell a bunch without the pads on, but Rosengard is going to be a really big, important piece, assuming he does win that starting right tackle job. Now, Adisa Isaac is someone I don't expect to play a lot. And I said this on yesterday's show too. I expect him to be a game day inactive most weeks. I expect the Ravens to keep five outside linebackers. There we go. 5 outside linebackers. And to me, that is Tavius Robinson, Adisa Isaac, Adafe Owe, Kyle Van Noy, David Ajabo. No order there, obviously. But when you talk about those 5, I think they probably activate 4 on game days. And assuming that no injuries are there, which hopefully there are not, I think Isaac is the one that is the odd man out and gets the game day inactive. Because you need Van Noy, you need Ajabo, you need Owe. Tavius Robinson is going to play a big role this season, in my opinion. So I think it is going to be Isaac. I think Isaac has potential. I just think we're going to see him more next season as opposed to this one. So not a ton of expectations for me this year for him. Could pop in a couple games, make a couple plays, but I'm not expecting a 10-sack season or anything like that from him. Then you move on to Tez Walker, who, look, I think, in my opinion, this is a guy that has there is a possibility here that out of this entire draft class, he is the 3rd most productive rookie on that team this year, which is not really, I don't think it's a hot take or anything. I think a lot of people see potential in Tez. He earned rave reviews during OTA's minicamp. Everybody's looking out for him already, but he is in that frame that the Ravens need. He is that skill set that Baltimore has been looking for at that position forever. They've tried it with a couple of guys. Miles Boykin, Rashad Perriman was pretty big and had that speed to him too, but it feels like they might have found something here with Tez. And by the end of the season, he could very well be, look, the hot take here is that he could be the number 2 receiver on this team by the time the year ends. He could jump Aguilar if, maybe Aguilar hits a bit of a vet wall. He could be the number 2 guy if Rashad Bateman struggles again or struggles with health. That could be a thing. I'm not predicting that to happen, at least not now, but it is a possibility because I think the Ravens already have a specific role in mind for Tez, and I think that they can definitely use him in that role to complement guys like Zay Flowers, complement guys like Rashad Bateman and Aguilar, and then work off of the tight ends who can also use their skills to bring down contested balls. Now, TJ Tampa, I still expect to have a decent role this year, but more so on special teams. Obviously, I think he will play in certain packages on defense, but in my opinion, I think he is more suited for a special teams role this season. He's the number 4 corner. And as I said, and I've said for a while, them replacing Darby and Yassine with Wiggins and Tampa is an upgrade, despite how good Darby played for them last season. So Tampa, I don't think is going to have a massive, massive role this year for them, but might have to step up. And honestly, having TJ Tampa as your 4th corner, it does make me feel good about the depth of this room. And if a guy does have to miss some time, they have enough to at least sustain through that. Even though you never want to lose your top guys, they have enough to sustain it. I think Rasheen Ali is a very intriguing player. Obviously, the running back out of Marshall they took in the 5th round. I think that for me, the role shifts once Keaton Mitchell comes back, right? I think everybody's in agreement on that. But I don't know. He has this element to him, the shiftiness, the route running, which is great out of the backfield. Him playing a third down role for them before Keaton comes back, I think could be really huge because Derrick Henry is going to be their bell cow. There's no question about that. Justice is going to be the second guy in line before Keaton comes back. But I think Rasheen Ali can still maybe get like 2 to 3 carries a game and maybe a reception out of the backfield. I think Baltimore is going to make a huge emphasis to use the running backs out of the backfield this season because obviously everybody on the roster now can catch balls out of the backfield. Not that Dobbins and Edwards couldn't, but I think we were kind of routed that in 2021. But I think Ali's going to play a big role for them this year. Then the other guys I don't really expect much. Devin Leary, he's more competing for the long-term backup spot for next season. Will be the third quarterback this year, assuming Emory Jones doesn't take over there. And then you also have, Nick Samek, I expect to just kind of be a game day inactive. And Sanusi Kane, honestly, out of those three, Sanusi Kane might be the one that I'm looking at just because the Ravens don't really have a ton of safety depth. They like Darius Washington a lot behind Hamilton and Williams, but could be a factor where if Washington struggles or gets injured and they don't bring in a vet, maybe Sanusi Kane steps up. He doesn't really fit the skill set Baltimore needs in a backup safety or a third safety role, but they liked, I guess, his physicality and the way that he plays more of a dime backer, but we'll see how that all pans out for him. So Baltimore's draft class, again, they're going to have to contribute a lot this season, but in my opinion, I think that the Ravens understood that in their draft, and they made sure that they're going to be able to figure things out with this rookie class as the year goes on. Coming up, though, we'll be talking about a bit of undrafted guys that could step up to the plate this season, plus more on what the Ravens need out of this class this season. Stay tuned, plenty to talk about here on the show. We're back our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher is still here with you on the Saturday bonus episode. Talking Ravens, talking rookies. Rookies report today to training camp. Another check mark on our checklist for this Ravens team as we just look forward to 2024 and the season coming, but we still got a little ways to go, but keep checking things off of that checklist. But let's talk about some potential undrafted gems that the Ravens could have this season and who could potentially make a roster push, because I know there's not necessarily a ton of room on the Ravens roster. Again, there are a lot of young guys, particularly second year, third year, fourth year rookies as well that will probably have those, but there are a couple that could maybe lose their spots to an undrafted guy. Now, one guy that a lot of people are really intrigued by is Joe Evans, the Iowa player that obviously defensive line, edge rusher type guy who was productive at Iowa, but there's maybe some Patrick Ricard to his game a little bit, some Ben Mason if you want to go there for a little throwback. He could potentially be a two-way player for this team. The Ravens have, I think, experimented with him there a little bit, so that's one to look out for. I think to me, as I said earlier, I think the Ravens only keep 5 edge rushers, so I don't know where that would be. Maybe it's a practice squad type deal for him, because even if we say they're keeping 5 edge guys, that means Malik Cam wouldn't make the roster. And I think Malik Cam is super talented. So Evans is probably 7th in line on the depth chart for edge guys, but I do think that he has an opportunity to make a name for himself. Now, Emory Jones, who we talked about a bit in the second part of the show, he also was a guy that is really intriguing. The Ravens could potentially view him as maybe their long-term backup quarterback too, if he ends up doing well enough. Now, he came from Florida, and in my opinion, it's going to be interesting because there's a lot. Well, it was Florida. He played in a bunch of places. Florida, played Arizona State, Cincinnati as well. So I'm intrigued to see what Emory Jones could do here, because at the end of the day, he's someone that could maybe make an impact, but at the same time, I think he would probably have to go through the practice squad route because the Ravens do have Lamar Jackson. They do have Josh Johnson. And then I do think Devin Leary makes the team as the third quarterback, but there is a possibility that Emory Jones could beat out Devin Leary. I don't think they keep 4 quarterbacks, even though they do have these new rules now. But I think they only keep 3, and I think it's going to be one of those 2. In fact, it will be one of those 2. Now, when you talk about other guys, the Ravens have a couple of really intriguing undrafted pass catchers, Dayton Wade being one that earned rave reviews during OTAs and minicamp. He's someone that I do think could make some level of an impact. That sixth wide receiver spot, it's honestly so interesting to me because it's Tylan Wallace's right now. He's the guy that is going to, if the season started today, Tylan Wallace is that sixth wide receiver. But you also have guys like Malik Cunningham, Dayton Wade, and the guys also. There are a few more that you could maybe make a case for. So I don't know. I mean, the Ravens, they've brought in a couple of other like smaller veteran guys. I know this is kind of straying away a bit from the whole undrafted thing, but I don't think Tylan Wallace is a lock here. He could potentially be a cut candidate if he does not perform up to the level of some of these other guys. I think the Ravens have 5 locks at wide receiver and 1 uncertainty. Tylan Wallace's spot is that uncertainty. Now, Kadir Ismail is another player that is intriguing, the son of former Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, and Locked on Ravens legend, by the way, Kadir Ismail, who comes on every week. But Kadir is working with the tight ends a little bit. John Harbaugh's saying they're experimenting with that. More of like a hybrid player potentially. So that's something that just to keep an eye on. I mean, I think for the Ravens, the more you can do in any NFL organization, right? The more you can do, the more value you have. And so for Kadir, being able to go out there, and if it is as a wide receiver, if it is as a tight end, we know the Ravens like their big body players. They need those big body players. Kadir is certainly that. He is certainly that. So to me, I think that's another intriguing player to watch over the course of training camp. But again, this year is going to be big for just expectations in general. There are going to be a lot of high expectations placed on these guys. And it comes with the territory. It comes with the expectations of this team where everybody wants their rookies to perform to a high level. But some teams need it more than others. And for the Ravens, them going so all in on their young guys, they definitely need it because while they can sign veterans throughout the season, Eric DeCosta is very good at making those midseason moves and midseason adjustments. You don't want to drop games early because of your young guys if it doesn't all pan out the way you expect it to. So we'll see how it pans out for him. But Baltimore's 2024 class, very talented. We'll see what the schedule's like for him and how they end up performing. But that's all I have here today on Locked on Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Maybe back tomorrow with a bonus episode. Not sure if the rookies are on the field and there are takeaways from the first day of them being on the field. If that is today, we'll talk about that on a bonus episode tomorrow. But if not, I'll see you right back here on Monday. We'll continue talking about this rookie class and the Ravens training camp, predictions, battles, and a lot more. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked on Ravens.